think this whole little generation that we have right here is genuinely just cooked. Like, this is no new information whatsoever. Like, we've been new. The generations, past Gen Z, probably even before that, is already cooked hard as hell. We already knew this. This ain't nothing new. But when it comes down to it, though, it's just more so the fact, the more every time people go on social media, start yapping about certain things, complaining about certain things, that makes absolutely all the normal common sense as to why something happens, and then people literally make it to be out to be like the worst thing in the world. It genuinely just shows people, yo, this is where my brain at. It's basically mashed potatoes at this point, and it's looking like a countryside custard. What the hell is that? I don't know. Why do I speak like that? But the main point is, though, people were literally flipping out over Momo getting, attacked in Dandadan, and I mean, what else did you really think was gonna be the case? What else did you really think a villain or a bad couple of characters is supposed to do? That is the whole dang point. Like, literally, if you're somebody that is absolutely not really caring about anything whatsoever, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna do a bad thing, and 9 times out of 10, yeah, that's kind of the whole dang point. That's the intent of the character, to do that sort of thing in that certain moment, because that's what's supposed to happen, right? And then most people be like, at least when it comes down to the average people, they are basically just like, wow, I can't believe this happened in the story, and I can't believe the author just let that happen to this character or this girl or whatever. And it's just like, stories happen like this for a reason. Like, you have bad people, villains in stories for like a reason. They have to be there. If that's what the story is demanding, they have to be there. That's just literally how it is, right? Not everybody's gonna be a good person, and if everybody was a good person in the show, I promise you probably say it's the most boring show ever, and then no one would give a damn, right? And that's just ultimately how it is on that front. So yes, villains are gonna be villains. That is literally should be no surprise to gosh dang anybody. And yet the fact that people are so amped up about it and basically get riled up that how is this possible? How dare they do something like this? No shit! Now, people could also be very much upset due to the fact that, Momo has been used in this sort of way multiple times before. And to be fair, yeah, that's fine if you want to complain about that or criticize the show for that sort of reasoning. But at the very same time, you should pretty much have an idea in your head what Dandadan actually is, or what sort of levels they will really sort of go to when it comes down to how they're gonna showcase certain things from happening, and what characters are gonna get involved in what certain scenes and stuff like that, right? Because obviously, Momo looks hot, Momo looks sexy, and the author clearly feels this very same way. So yes, you're gonna see her get probably in a assaulting sort of situation, because that's just how it is. It's like Fire Force when Tamaki is on screen. Anytime Tamaki is on screen, some goofy shit is about to come down, and it's probably gonna be her pants that comes down. So you already know what to expect. The same thing with Momo. Not necessarily in a goofier way, but you can very much expect, hey, something weird is gonna happen here. And that's just the nature of this show. So obviously, we should very much expect that. You don't have to necessarily like it, like I said, but at the end of the day, you should very much expect that that is going to be the case. And again, like I said before, you need villain characters to kind of exist, especially with stories that have stakes in them, to kind of do what they need to do without, honestly, sometimes no explanation of them, really trying to flip the script of trying to have a redeeming arc or anything like that. And I feel like that's what a lot of this is also come down to as well. There's a lot of shows that has a lot of villains that exist out there. They give the reason as to why they do what they do, and then everybody pretty much wants them to go on this redeeming character arc, this redemption arc of, everything of the sort like that. But ultimately, not every single villain needs to really have something like that. Don't get me wrong, some characters very much like to see it, and some characters very much deserve the W that they have when it comes to it, but not every single person needs to have it, as annoying as it can be for certain cases. Also, I will probably say this too, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I do feel like a lot of Western writing loves to make redeeming villain characters like a lot. Like, Ruby has that to a point where they have, like, Emerald and you know, I guess like a few other people too I could think of, like maybe Neapolitan too, try to be like a redeeming person, even though we haven't seen the whole ass results of it. Still, they're trying to be like a redeeming person, and most likely as Ruby is gonna, you know, start to write in the volume 10, we'll probably see more things like that as time goes on, right? And you could basically look at really any cartoon show or any kid show that has ever really existed with a plot, and you could pretty much see that, yeah, there's a lot of those that exist where characters did something bad for a little bit of time, only for them to flip the script and kind of just actually be a good guy character, and that's just ultimately how it is. But not every single piece of fiction has to be like that, right? And hell, you can still make a character be in the realm of doing good things, but at the very same time they can still be an asshole person, or even be questionably kind of gray in all this sort of stuff, right? Because like someone like Arlecchino, for example, very much you're thinking, oh yeah, she's out here working with the Fatui, about to beat ass and basically about to spearhead, you know, Farina in the face with that whole ass spear that she got. But in reality, she's not even that necessarily that bad. She literally wants to protect the children. She actually gives a damn. And to keep it very much that, you know, she'll do anything to keep them safe as much as she possibly can. The only downside is, when it comes to Arlecchino, she doesn't necessarily be a absolute good person all the time. Like, she's not gonna sit here and not kill somebody if it needs to happen. She will do so, and that's just how it is. That's the type of person Arlecchino is. So ultimately, she still has that gray side to her, even if she's mostly good for the most part. Like, literally, you can pick out any show that you really want to, and then you can find characters that is basically sort of gray or have a slight bit of redeeming quality that's in there, and you know, you can still very much use it for what you want to. But then there's sometimes where you just have characters that just exist where they're just purely there to be evil, and that is the whole dang point, right? Like someone like
on his head, Nappa! Are you?
Or like literally any character that exists within, you know, the realm of anime that actually is just pure straight up assholery evil. They just are like that because obviously the hero of the story needs somebody to, you know, come across and beat their ass and indicate a victory over, right? And even in the case where something like Dandadan, with the whole ass people trying to grab up on Momo, which I don't blame them for, but just maybe in a more consensual way, but still when it comes down to it though, you know, it's just like, yeah, of course she's gonna have to get attacked a bit of times, because at the end of the day, yeah, not everybody's gonna sit here and be mad polite to Momo like, hey, can I please touch some titty? No, they trying to force themselves to touch some titty, and then guess what ends up happening? She beat their ass, and that's just how it is. You need conflicts at times to kind of happen to make the characters be progressing in their, you know, growth as people a lot more, right? Again, it's nice to have dynamics when it comes to your characters. You know, not everybody needs to be a straight up good guy or just follow good reasoning for being a good character and a good person. Or really, same thing with a villain. You don't necessarily need to just straight up be asshole evil just because they're an asshole and evil for literally no sort of reason. That sometimes it's just boring when you have that. Sometimes you do have to have those reasonings, but they don't know. But it really, sometimes they don't have to flip flop to just be straight up, you know, just like, oh, I'm evil, but you know, now I'm good now, and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes they just, you know, play the straight man, be straight up evil, be straight up good, and that's just how it is. That's basically like if you are a creator of some type of fiction, or you told a story and some random woman in the story got raped at some point. Like, let's just keep it very much a stack. That doesn't mean you support the idea of, you know, women getting harassed in that sort of way, but it's just the fact that, well, if it is needed for a story or you could use it for a story, then that's just how it is. And I don't think anything is off the table when it comes down to what you want to use in your story, because again, it is fiction at the end of the day. If you want somebody to basically become a German Yahtzee guy from way back when, and somehow they have all the powers of a deity and someone has to stop them and all that sort of stuff, and they've done a lot of ridiculous ass things, then yeah, I feel like that's kind of valid to use for a story. Maybe not this type of story I would tell, or most other people would, but if you want to use that, then that's fine. Because again, at the end of the day, it's fiction. It's supposed to be, you know, used in some weird shape and form. You can do whatever the hell you want to. Again, you're telling a story that really has no effect on real life whatsoever, so who the hell cares, right? I know a lot of people also say that, you know, things like rape, when it comes down to, you know, women and how they kind of go through issues and stories like that, is often overused and it's a bit shit at times, and it can be, but also at the same time, I don't think that should be something that be taken out of like stories, or it can't be done. Yes, I understand for some people it is a sensitive topic, but at the very same time, if it can be used for a story and it's used well, I don't really see why that should be an issue or it can't be done. And again, it reminds me of that one video, and I've said this example a few times before, where somebody was talking about Final Fantasy 16 and then they got pissed off because, you know, they basically referenced it with Jill and how she kind of went through it with the kids, trying to protect them and all that sort of stuff, and just all that sort of detail, and how they hate Final Fantasy went in that sort of direction. And they and basically was saying like, yo, we should never talk about this ever. But it's like, when do you talk about this? When do you bring it up? How can you bring it up if you never do so? So when it comes down to it, it's like, no, you need these uncomfortable ass discussions sometimes, because that's the damn point. No one has ever really had the time to talk about it, so F it, put it in a story so we can have a dialogue about it, right? And that's just how it is. But so many people are so quick to dismiss it, or just basically, you know, run away from the subject of it, or, you know, run away from its problem, even though, yes, it's a very real thing that can happen. But that's the reason why we're doing it in a story, so we can talk about it, so we can bring awareness for it and all that sort of stuff, and, you know, I guess just like talk about it a bit more critically, you know? And that's really with a lot of villains' actions too, heroes' actions as well. The whole dang point as to why a lot of people hell even got into, you know, anime and, you know, start thinking about it critically for YouTube and content creation's sake, is because they wanted to, you know, look at it from a deeper lens and see what the author actually mean by certain decisions that they made and all that sort of stuff, right? That's the beauty of these sort of conversations, and why villains are so dang important, and why they do the things they do. Messed up individuals, terrible ass people at times, for sure, but also at the same time, that's what makes them fascinating, because they do a lot of the wild and shit that you would never want to see anybody else really do, you know? And that's just like the cool thing about it, you know? And again, like I said before, not every person needs to be redeemed. I found it to be sometimes of a cop-out if you decide to do something like that, right? Unless it's like a very good explained situation as to why. I don't really see why villains need to be, you know, redeemed constantly. So yes, bad people do bad things, basically. Who the hell knew? That just literally life. That's Mario Kart. Literally, that's Mario Kart. You throw a damn blue shell at me and then you shot me with lightning. Yeah, we're gonna crash out, and crash out season is here. That's just ultimately how it is. People get mad because of these damn villains coming through and doing a lot of wild stuff, but honestly, this is just how it is. That's just how some people is. Some people just ready for a crash out. Some people just ready to fight because they started instigating. Some people out here just ready to box because that's how they grew up in L Block. It is what it is. That's just how certain characters roll. But that's what I guess all I wanted to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also, if you'd like to follow me on the socials, please do. We're almost close to 300 left. Less than 300 really. When it comes out to 5K, let's get it. We pretty much almost there. And until then, it's Boy J, sign off. Have a blessed day.